Now let's try to study the different types of matrices. First, a column matrix. A column matrix is a matrix having only one column and any number of rows. That is, it can have any number of rows, but it has to have only one column. For example, this is a 3 cross 1 matrix, as it has got 3 rows but just one column, so it is a column matrix. Now, what is a row matrix? It is a matrix having only one row and any number of columns. Example, cos x, sin square x and 2. This is a 1 cross 3 matrix, as it has got one row and 3 columns. And similarly, this is a 1 cross 4 matrix. So what we can say is a column matrix is having only one column and a row matrix is having only one row. Now the third is a square matrix. This is a matrix in which the number of rows is equal to the number of columns. For example, this is a 2 cross 2 matrix. Here what we see is it has got 2 rows and it has got 2 columns. So the number of rows is equal to the number of columns, and that is equal to 2. Similarly, this is a 3 cross 3 matrix having 3 rows and 3 columns. So again, a matrix in which the number of rows is equal to the number of columns is a square matrix. Now what is a diagonal matrix? This is a matrix in which all non-diagonal elements are 0 and all diagonal elements are not equal. Now for example, we consider this matrix. It is a 3 cross 3 diagonal matrix. Now what we see here is these represent the diagonal elements, that is 3, 7, 1. And here what we see that is a diagonal element is aij, where I is equal to j. So any element where I is equal to j is a diagonal element. And for a diagonal matrix, the diagonal elements have to be non-zero, but the non-diagonal elements have to be 0. So we see that these elements are actually 0. That is, except the diagonal elements, all the non-diagonal elements have to be 0. And also the diagonal elements don't have to be equal. So this is the condition for a matrix to be a diagonal matrix. Now the fifth is a scalar matrix. What is a scalar matrix? This is a square matrix in which all the non-diagonal elements are 0 and the diagonal elements are equal. For example, we consider this matrix. This is a 3 cross 3 scalar matrix. Here what we see is all the diagonal elements are equal, that is, all are equal to 3, and all the non-diagonal elements are 0. So it is actually a diagonal matrix in which all the diagonal elements are equal. So the important points to note are, it has to be a square matrix first of all, second, the diagonal elements are equal, and third, the non-diagonal elements have to be equal to 0. Now what is an identity matrix or a unit matrix? This is a square matrix in which all the non-diagonal elements are 0 and all the diagonal elements are equal to unity. Example, this is a 3 cross 3 identity matrix. Now what we see is the diagonal elements are equal to 1. So it is actually a scalar matrix in which the diagonal element, the values equal to 1. Now identity matrix of order n is denoted by In, and again identity matrix is a scalar matrix. Now what is a 0 or a null matrix? This is a matrix in which all the elements are equal to 0. That is, if we consider this matrix 2 cross 3 matrix, in this we see that all the elements are equal to 0. And if we consider this 3 cross 3 matrix, again we see all the elements are equal to 0. So for any matrix to be a 0 matrix or a null matrix, its elements have a value that is equal to 0.